The office clock ticked mercilessly toward 9 a.m., each second a drumbeat against Taehyung's growing panic. He sprinted down the empty street, briefcase bouncing against his hip, rain-slicked shoes squelching against the wet pavement. His umbrella had flipped inside out in the wind a block ago, leaving him soaked to the bone. He glanced at the towering glass building ahead, Jungkook's domain, and felt the familiar pit of dread settle in his stomach. Another late arrival, another angry glare waiting for him. Taehyung skidded through the revolving doors, dripping water across the polished marble floor, and muttered a quiet, desperate plea. Please, let it not be too bad today. Jungkook, precise in everything, prided himself on order. Punctuality was his religion, efficiency his creed. And yet, here was Taehyung, his secretary, his subordinate, his daily source of frustration, walking in 15 minutes late with a sheepish grin, a crumpled shirt, and hair that looked like it had survived a windstorm overnight. He walked faster toward his desk, heart pounding so loudly he was sure everyone could hear it. Each step felt heavy. He could already feel it, the inevitable summoning, the silence before the storm. He barely had time to place his bag under the desk when, "Do you have any idea what time it is?" Jungkook's voice sliced through the air, low, sharp, and dripping with restrained anger. Taehyung's stomach knotted. I'm sorry, sir. The bus. Don't give me excuses." Jungkook interrupted sharply, stepping closer. His heels clicked against the marble floor with a rhythm that made Tae flinch. "You were late yesterday, and the day before. Your file yesterday. It was incomplete. Mistakes everywhere. Do you even care about this job? And let me guess the report I asked for yesterday." Taehyung's fingers tightened around the file. "I finished it, sir. I stayed up." Jungkook took the file without asking and flipped it open. Silence filled the room. Seconds passed. Then Jungkook laughed. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was worse. A soft, humorless sound like disbelief. "This," Jungkook said, holding up the file, "is what you call finished?" Taehyung's face burned. I checked the numbers twice, sir." "Twice?" Jungkook looked at him now, eyes sharp. "Congratulations. Do you want a medal?" He dropped the file onto the desk. The sound echoed. "Page 12. Jungkook continued. "The projections are wrong." Taehyung's stomach dropped. "They shouldn't be. Page 19. Formatting error. Page 23. You cited an outdated source. And page 30. Jungkook leaned forward slightly, voice lowering, "Is completely unusable." Taehyung felt something crack inside his chest. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'll fix it. I can stay late." "You always stay late." Jungkook snapped suddenly, the calm shattering. "And yet somehow you never improve fast enough." He straightened, eyes burning. "Tell me something, Kim Taehyung. Are you incompetent or just lazy?" The words landed hard. Taehyung flinched. "I'm trying," he said quietly. Jungkook stared at him. "Trying? What a pathetic word." "You know why you're still here?" Jungkook said coldly. Taehyung's lips trembled, but he nodded. "Because my father," Jungkook continued, voice dripping with contempt, decided to hire you. Taehyung's head dropped. Without him, Jungkook went on, someone with your education, your experience, wouldn't even make it past the lobby. Each word was precise, calculated, cruel. You think this is a charity? Jungkook asked. That you can stroll in late, ruin important documents, and still keep your job? No, sir, Taehyung whispered. His eyes burned, but he didn't cry. He never did. I don't think that. Then act like it. Jungkook turned toward the window, dismissing him like an afterthought. You'll get coffee? Yes, sir. From Starbucks. Taehyung hesitated. Jungkook glanced back slowly. Is there a problem? No, Taehyung said immediately. No problem. Jungkook checked his watch. Walk. Taehyung froze. Sir. Walk, Jungkook repeated calmly. It's only 6 blocks. I don't want my time wasted waiting. Taehyung looked down at his soaked shoes, then at Jungkook. Understanding dawned. Taehyung nodded slowly. Yes, sir. He bent down, hands shaking, and slipped off his shoes. The floor was cold. He picked them up, bowed once more, and walked out. The office went silent as he passed. The office clock ticked mercilessly toward 9 a.m., each second a drumbeat against Taehyung's growing panic. He sprinted down the empty street, briefcase bouncing against his hip, rain-slicked shoes squelching against the wet pavement. His umbrella had flipped inside out in the wind a block ago, leaving him soaked to the bone. He didn't curse Jungkook. He didn't cry. He just thought of the hospital bed, of the machines, of the small voice that called him Mama. And he kept walking. By the time Taehyung returned, he pushed through the revolving doors, soaked to the bone, shoes dangling uselessly from his fingers. His white shirt clung to him, transparent in places, the cold biting straight into his bones. His hair dripped water onto the marble floor. The security guard glanced at his bare feet, then looked away. Elevator door was not opening. Taehyung didn't take the elevator this time. He used the stairs. 7 floors. Not because anyone told him to, but because he knew what would happen if he delayed Jungkook even a second longer. By the time he reached the office floor, his chest burned, lungs screaming, his vision blurred at the edges, dark spots dancing in front of his eyes. He paused only long enough to steady himself against the wall, pressing his forehead briefly against the cool glass. Just a little longer. He walked in. The office smelled like coffee and polish and quiet cruelty. Taehyung kept his head down and walked straight to Jungkook's office. The door was open. Jungkook was seated this time, typing on his laptop, jacket off, sleeves rolled up. He didn't look up when Taehyung approached. The coffee cup trembled in Taehyung's hands. He set it down carefully on the desk. Latte, he said softly, cold. Jungkook glanced at the cup, then at Taehyung's feet. A flicker of something crossed his eyes, maybe guilt. Go redo the report. Jungkook continued, already returning to his screen. I want it on my desk before night. Later that evening, Jungkook's father, Namjoon, called him into the study. Jungkook entered, still fuming over Taehyung's latest blunder. Dad, I swear, this employee, he's hopeless, always late, constantly screwing things up. I can't, Jungkook started, but Namjoon raised a hand. Stop, Namjoon said calmly. You're forgetting what I told you. Taehyung needed this job. You think he's just incompetent, but I've seen him improve. He does mistakes, yes, but he's proving himself, Jungkook, and you cannot fire him or reduce his salary. Jungkook's jaw clenched. So what? I just let him continue embarrassing himself. And me? Namjoon's eyes softened. No, you guide him, punish if needed, but don't destroy him. You don't know the half of what he's carrying. Jungkook left the study, irritation gnawing at him, but somewhere inside, doubt began to sprout. That night, Tae returned home, drenched and exhausted. He opened the apartment door. Jae-soo was asleep on the couch, his tiny hand clutching Tae's coat, unaware of the harsh world beyond their walls. Tae carefully set the coffee down, hung his coat, and quietly attended to his family. For a moment, sitting in the dimly lit living room, listening to the steady beep of Jimin's machines and the soft breathing of Jae, so Tae thought, I can do this, I must. Even if the world at the office was cruel, even if Jungkook's words cut deep, Tae reminded himself that here at home he was needed, he was loved, and he was strong. It wasn't much, but it was enough to keep him moving, one step at a time, through the rain, through the punishments, and through life's endless demands. At 9:30 sharp, Jungkook called for the weekly team meeting. The conference room filled quickly, department heads, senior managers, assistants, with tablets in hand. Taehyung took his usual seat at the far end of the table, notebook open, pen poised. Jungkook entered last. The room straightened instantly. He took his seat at the head of the table, eyes scanning the room. When they landed on Taehyung, his gaze lingered just long enough to make Taehyung's stomach twist. Let's begin, Jungkook said. The meeting moved quickly, projections, deadlines, upcoming deals. Taehyung wrote everything down carefully, his handwriting small and precise. Then Jungkook spoke again. Kim Taehyung. Taehyung looked up immediately. Yes, sir. Explain the revised projections for the Hansong deal. The room went still. Taehyung swallowed. He stood, hands gripping the edge of the table to steady himself. Yes, sir, he said, flipping to the right page. The initial projections didn't account for the delayed permit approvals, so I adjusted the timeline and reduced. Speak up, Jungkook interrupted. Taehyung raised his voice slightly. I reduced the short-term profit margin by 12% to account for wrong. The word hit like a slap. Taehyung froze. Sir? Jungkook leaned back in his chair. If you'd actually understood the data instead of copying it, you'd know the reduction should be 10.5. Taehyung's face flushed. I recalculated based on. Sit down, Jungkook said sharply. Taehyung sat. Does anyone else want to explain it for him? Jungkook asked, eyes sweeping the table. A senior analyst cleared his throat and explained the projections confidently, smoothly. Jungkook nodded. See, that's how you do it. He looked back at Taehyung. Take notes. Education can't be fixed overnight, but at least try. A few people chuckled. Taehyung stared at his notebook. The words blurred. He wrote anyway. At noon, Taehyung skipped lunch. He always did on meeting days. Instead, he stayed at his desk, revising spreadsheets and cross-checking figures. His phone buzzed once, a message from the hospital reminding him about an upcoming payment. He closed it without replying. At 1:30, Jungkook walked past his desk again. That night, Taehyung stayed until 2 again. When he finally left, rain had started heavy, relentless, soaking the streets. He waited at the bus stop, shivering, arms wrapped around himself. A black car slowed to a stop in front of him. The window rolled down. Jungkook sat inside. Get in, he said curtly. Taehyung stared. I, sir? Don't makai me repeat myself, Jungkook said flatly. Taehyung hesitated only a second before opening the door. The car was warm, too warm. He sat stiffly, hands folded in his lap, trying not to soak the leather seats. Jungkook drove in silence. They passed the city lights, neon reflecting off wet roads. Your place? Jungkook asked abruptly. Taehyung gave the address. The car slowed in front of the small, worn building. Jungkook frowned. This is where you live? Yes, sir. Jungkook looked at the building, the flickering hallway light visible through the window. Something unreadable passed through his eyes. Get inside, he said shortly. Taehyung opened the door. Before he could step out, Jungkook shrugged off his coat and held it out. Taehyung froze. Sir? Take it, Jungkook said, irritation lacing his voice. You look pathetic. Taehyung accepted the coat with shaking hands. Thank you, he whispered. Jungkook didn't respond. He drove off. Taehyung stood there in the rain, coat wrapped tightly around himself, heart pounding with something he didn't understand yet. Jungkook didn't plan to stop the car. He told himself that as he drove away, he'd done what decency required, offered a ride, tossed a coat, removed an inconvenience from his conscience. That was all. Nothing more. Nothing personal. And yet, at the next intersection, his foot eased off the accelerator. The rain blurred the windshield, city lights smearing into streaks of white and red. His grip tightened on the steering wheel. Pathetic. The word echoed his own voice, thrown at Taehyung earlier. The way Taehyung had taken it without protest, without anger, without anything at all. Jungkook cursed under his breath and turned the wheel. By the time he reached the building again, he told himself it was only because of curiosity. He parked across the street, engine idling. From where he sat, he could see the front entrance. Taehyung stood just inside the doorway, Jungkook's coat draped over his thin shoulders. He didn't go up immediately. Instead, he paused, leaning briefly against the wall like his legs might give out. Then the door opened. A small figure ran out. Mama! The word cut through the rain like a blade. Jungkook stiffened. The child was small, too small, bundled in an oversized hoodie, bare feet slapping against the cold floor as he threw himself at Taehyung. Taehyung dropped instantly, knees hitting the tile as he caught the child, arms wrapping around him protectively. Hey, Taehyung murmured, voice softer than Jungkook had ever heard it. Why are you awake? You late, the child mumbled, burying his face into Taehyung's chest. I know, Taehyung whispered. I'm sorry. Jungkook stared. Mama, the word echoed again, louder this time. Taehyung lifted the child into his arms and carried him inside, the door closing behind him. Jungkook's chest felt tight, uncomfortable.